So I have an idea, but I'm not sure if it's gonna look good or not. So what exactly is a braided ribbon dress, you ask? Well, I'm not 100% sure just yet. But basically, I'm taking ribbon and then braiding it, and then using those strands or cords of braid, but using that as like an applique on a dress and turning it into some sort of design. But we'll worry about that later. But first things first, we need to make the base dress. Alright, so for the base dress, I started out by pattern drafting the top. I'm using this light pink fabric that was left over from another project. I cut it out and sewed it together. I also added some interfacing that may be too heavy for it, but it may or may not be fine. We shall find out later. To be honest, I was a little bit stressed about creating the top, so I didn't really film a whole lot of it. But moving on, I then used a basic A-line skirt pattern that I had drafted and I use all the time. I cut it out and added the darts and sewed the top to the skirt. So I need to make a few adjustments. I'm not sure if the interfacing was a good idea. The interfacing was too heavy because I bought the wrong one and I was like, oh, maybe it'll be fine. It might be fine, it might not be fine. I just wanted to give it a bit of structure. Oh, it's also a new day, by the way. I'll insert a montage. Welcome back. So I need to add some little darts in the back just so it's not so poofy. I also need to lengthen the zipper a bit because it's a bit tight. Get on and off because I might have forgotten to put seam allowance in the back part. So always remember your seam allowance. Otherwise your clothes are going to be too tight. Keep in mind that how the dress looks on the dress form versus how it looks on me are going to be slightly different. I made the dress to fit my measurements as opposed to the dress form's measurements, although it's pretty close. It's not exact. Okay, so we're sitting a little better now. Just need to iron it out. It's not straight. But you get the idea. So I'm going to separate the front and the back because it's going to be easier to add the ribbon on if they're two separate things. And I'm going to hem everything as well, top and the bottom. I had some complicated ideas about what to do ribbon-wise. My first idea was just to get white ribbon and dye it the colors that I wanted. But I realized by the time I dye it and buy all the ribbons, but it's going to cost me quite a bit in time and money, and I wasn't sure how much of each color that I needed. My second idea was to paint them, but I wanted the colors to be more richer and less pastel. I therefore landed on the simplest idea of just buying the colors that were closest to what I wanted, which is much less time consuming. So I want to do a design that covers the whole dress, but I'm not exactly sure what that is just yet. I think I'm just overthinking it and needing it to be artistic and like make sense with the ribbon, like make it like waves or clouds or do something kind of like swirly or something. But I don't really want to do that. It's kind of like it's there in my head, it's there in my mind, just like the vision that I have, but it doesn't seem to be manifesting itself into anything tangible. I've sketched out a bunch of different ideas and I don't really like any of them. But I think I'm just going to start and see if the ideas come to me that way. I also ordered this ivory ribbon, colored ribbon, that came yesterday, just in time. So I got 4 colors to work with. So the sort of thought process behind this project was looking at different ways to use ribbon on a dress. And I thought to myself, what would maybe make it a little bit more interesting? I was like, I know, I could braid it. The idea here is basically if I were to take braided trim that you could buy at a store or online, but make it myself and put it everywhere. I mostly just want to see what this is going to look like. So this is the kind of thing I'm thinking, like this sort of wavy kind of thing. I got a lot of work to do. So this ribbon I just conveniently ordered off of Amazon. They were like 100 meters each for like $10. So for something like this where I'm just experimenting, I don't really want to spend too much money on it. And it was a really good deal. But this ribbon is surprisingly not bad quality. Only the red one is a bit papery, the others are just fine. I didn't end up using the other red, which was more of a rust color. It didn't quite work out between the two of us. Now, you may be wondering how I entertain myself while doing such a monotonous project. I'll usually put on some music, or a podcast, lots of coffee, take breaks, work on other creative projects to change it up a little, worry if I have enough materials to finish the project or not. I also like to get lost in my own thoughts and forget where I am. And now back to our project. So I want to start sewing on the ribbon. This is just to see how much I need. This is not how it's going to look. I have a pretty good idea of what I want to do now. Basically, it's just this like wave pattern. I don't want to overcomplicate it too much because there's a lot going on already with the ribbon. So I want to keep it pretty simple. And I'm just going to do the top part for now, just the bodice for now, because I want to see how the ribbon falls on the skirt because the skirt is wider than the bodice, obviously. And I think I can do something kind of cool with like how it's spaced out on the skirt. But I just want to see it first, you know? And I also would like to do something else other than braid ribbon all day. So. So it's been a few days since I last talked to you. I've just been working away, sewing on braided ribbon for hours on end. But let me catch you up to what I've been doing while we've been apart. Well, you didn't really miss much. It's just been a lot of sewing on ribbon. So I'm almost done the back. I just have to do these guys. I did these little crossovers with the red, which I think gives it a bit of interest. And then I just need to fill in the blanks. So that just means more braiding ribbon and sewing it on. I didn't think this project would take this long, to be honest. You know, sewing on ribbon doesn't feel like it would take very long. But when you're dealing with like angles and shapes of the human body and trying to sew it on in a reasonable way, it takes a little bit longer. The zipper's here. You can't see it. And then the front, I have to still do. It's what I'm going to be doing for a while. As I was doing this, the curve pattern sort of turned into a straight line. I probably should have started the curve in the middle of the dress instead of the sides, but we're just going to go with it at this point. The ribbon kind of reminds me of knitting or like knit fabric. A stockinette stitch, to be exact. They look like little braids. I haven't actually knitted in years. Alright, so we got everybody on the back tacked down and cut. Okay, it's time to do the front. I'm going to fill it all in after. I just want to get everything I have tacked down and looking presentable. Also, don't let me forget to add straps, because I have a feeling I'm going to forget to add straps. I can just sew it on top of this. It's okay. So after a hostile takeover of my chair and successful negotiations, soon everything started to hurt. So I decided to leave it for the day. M.A. brownies sans gluten, because my body does not like the gluten, unfortunately, anymore. But the brownies were actually really good, and you couldn't even tell that they were gluten-free, so 10 out of 10. The next day I came back and said, "Today I will finish you." My goal was to finish the entire project, but that turned out to be a little too ambitious. So I finished the front. I actually think it looks pretty cute. I think it's turning out pretty well so far. It kind of reminds me of a circus or like a carnival kind of vibes. I think it's just the colors and the stripiness of it. But I think it's going to look pretty cool when it's all done. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. I've just been using like the leftover ends from the main ones that I cut off to fill it in, which has worked out really well. So I came back the next day and said, "Today I will actually finish you." How to finish the dress in 4 easy steps. The first step is to sew the sides together. Okay, actually the first step is to clean up the mess I made, and then sew the sides together. I tried it on to make sure it fit, and I got stuck in it, of course, but it's fine. We freed ourselves eventually. Step 2 is to fill in the sides. Oh, you thought we were done sewing on ribbon? I wanted to fill in the sides with just red as a design choice and because I was running out of ribbon. But then, of course, disaster struck when I ran out of red ribbon. So I had to order some more so that I could do the other side and finish it. And in the meantime, I moved on to step 3, which is adding straps, which I remembered and didn't forget. The next day, Amazon pulled through and delivered the ribbon. Thanks, Amazon. It's way more than I actually need, but I'll find other things to do with it. Then I worked my way back to step number 2 and finished the other side. And finally, step number 4 is to add trim on the edges, on the top and on the bottom to frame it. Although I don't mind the frayed ribbon edges from like a distance. And finally, we have our finished dress. So I think this little experiment didn't turn out too badly. The interfacing did actually help, just to update you on that, because I know you were wondering about that. I quite enjoyed sewing on the ribbon, even though it got tiring. I wish it was a bit more wavy though. But I'm not mad at it.